Hi, welcome to Fireside Chat with Judy Gaman. I'm your host, Judy Gaman, and I'm here with Dr. Walter Gaman tonight. And one of the things that we're doing is something that you all have helped us with. When we did the other Fireside Chat, I asked people to go ahead and send in questions, things that they wanted you to answer, and we've had quite a response. So we're going to go through some of those, continue to send in your questions, and we'll continue to answer them. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay. So Kristen DePaul said, there's a lot of controversy over COVID and Advil. Please clear this up for us.
Well, you know, most of these questions sound very simple but have very complicated answers. So in Switzerland, scientists noticed that a lot of people with COVID-19 had a history of diabetes and high blood pressure. And because of that, a lot of them were on a type of high blood pressure medicine known as ACE type of blood pressure medicines. And ACE type of medicines increase another receptor on the cell membrane called ACE2. And the reason that's important is the COVID virus likes to attack the ACE2 receptor to get inside of a human cell.
So is this why a lot of people that have heart disease or hypertension or some of these things are saying they're at more risk?
They were saying that. It turns out not to be true. The Advil connection is that ACE2 inhibitors can increase if you reduce inflammation. So drugs like Advil, which is ibuprofen that reduces inflammation, can increase ACE2 receptor sites. So from a very simplistic point of view, it would appear that that would make it easier for the virus to get inside the human body. But this was all anecdotal evidence. More recent studies, which were much more rigorous, show that people on ACE and ARBs actually do better, because even though the ACE2 receptors go up, the ACE1 receptors and the ARB receptors are blocked, and it turns out the virus likes those receptors better than the ACE2 receptors. So this is an example where one observation can lead to a wrong conclusion.
Okay, so on Advil, it doesn't matter.
The current recommendation is there's absolutely no evidence not to use Advil or ibuprofen.
Well, that's great information, because I know so many people are worried about this. When you have kind of flu-like symptoms, one of the first things you do is you go for Advil, or you go for one of these cough medicines, or all these flu-like symptom medicines, and a lot of them do have ibuprofen, which is the key ingredient in Advil. So that is great. Thanks for clearing that up.
Sure.
Let's go to our next question. This is Rachel Wickery, and she said, if you get a case of COVID-19 and recover, are you immune? Now, I want to say thank you, Rachel, for that. And we've had a couple of other people ask the same question, but Rachel was first, so we're going to give her credit. So what's the answer?
Well, the answer is probably.
Oh, you sound like a politician.
So almost all viral infections, the human body responds by forming antibodies, both known as IgG and IgM antibodies that kill the virus. And typically, once you've had the disease, your immune system is now ready to produce the antibodies at any time, and so you develop lifelong immunity. And this is what happens with many other diseases, like chickenpox and so on. The reason we say probably is because we're starting to study the recovered patients and check their immune status. And we can actually check this with blood tests. Measure the IgG and IgM and correlate it with how they do. But most likely people will recover and be immune for life. And the biggest supporting evidence is there's 4 strains of coronavirus, not COVID-19, that have been around for decades and decades. And in those cases, people get flu-like illness, and once they're recovered, they have lifelong immunity.
Okay, but we don't know for sure with COVID-19, which leads me really to the next question, which came from Van Williams. Van, thank you for that. And it says, how do you know if you have immunity? And I kind of answered him online. Some of you may have seen that. I don't know if that's changed. The answer I gave him was, we don't know yet, because we don't yet have that testing. Is that still true?
That's not still true. We now have that testing available. It's not widely available, but will be within the next month. And so we will be able to test. The test won't say whether you have COVID-19 at that moment,
Right.
but it'll say whether you've had it in the past.
So to kind of put this into perspective, for some of you who have had to have like vaccines, for example, hepatitis A or hepatitis B, and you can't find your vaccine records, sometimes they'll say, well, get the blood test so we can see if you've had it. This is kind of similar. We would get a blood test of an IgG or an IgM that says, hey, there's some antibodies, so we know that you've been exposed and there seems to be some kind of immunity, correct?
Correct. We call it serology.
Serology, okay. Now, here's another one. This is from Tressa Mika, and she said, I've heard conflicting information. Is COVID-19 a droplet or is it airborne? And if it's airborne, how long will it be in the air? And she has a follow-up question to that as well.
The answer to this is actually extremely complicated.
Okay, dumb it down for us.
I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible. It's mainly droplet, and the difference between droplet and aerosol or airborne is droplets are bigger particles greater than 20 microns, and basically when you breathe on someone or cough on someone or sneeze on someone, the droplets will go up to 6 feet. And
so
if
thus the 6 feet
thus
separation.
the 6 feet separation. And so if the droplet falls on your face or you breathe it in, then
in your eyes,
then you're going to catch it. Now the problem with that is if you're outside and there's a big wind, the wind will spread the droplets more than 6 feet. And the wind, as well as certain other weather conditions, can alter the droplets so that they become smaller particles. And the smaller the particle, the further in the air it will go. And so that's part of the problem. It can be airborne under certain situations. Now those situations, ironically, are more common when people are in the hospital, especially if you're on a ventilator or you're getting updraft treatments for your lungs. When you breathe out, because of those treatments, the droplets are broken up and become aerosol. And maybe one of the reasons that healthcare workers are getting more infections and so many more deaths.
Because the particles are so much smaller, they may think that they're fine and they're just floating around in the air.
The other problem with the droplets, after the 6 feet, if there's no one around, they fall to the ground. And if you're outside, they die very quickly. If they fall on certain surfaces, plastic is the worst. They can live for up to 72 hours on plastic and less on steel and other items. And so that's why you have to wash your hands. So if you touch something and then you touch your face, you can infect yourself.
You know what that makes me think of? It makes me think of all these phone cases. Most of them are plastic. So you're touching your face, you touch your phone, somebody else touches your phone, or you touch your face, you touch your phone, you touch something else. This is why it's so important.
The other thing about droplets, I told you this was a complicated answer. Healthcare workers who wear their personal protective equipment, it turns out that the locker rooms where they change has the highest concentration of virus in the hospital. Because as they're taking off these paper gowns and so on, the droplets are on this material. And as they're disposing of it, the droplets get thrown into the air, and sometimes they're aerosoled at the same time.
So what's the solution for these healthcare workers?
Well, all this has just come to light.
Yeah.
And basically, it's almost like they have to be sprayed down first and then take their stuff off. Stay tuned. This is
It's
new.
kind of like a fluid situation, and this is why it's so important to do these firesides, sit down, answer questions, knowing that tomorrow we may know more information, be able to bring you more things, because it's ever changing.
And there's more. It turns out that the virus it is in the stool and in urine, and normally you wouldn't catch it from the stool or the urine. But when you go to the bathroom, as the stool or the urine hits the water in the toilet, some of the virus is aerosoled and goes into the air.
Oh, goodness.
And then you can catch it that way also.
So I'm thinking we should avoid all public restrooms.
Well, for now, if you can, yes. for now. So, but right now it's mainly the hospital restrooms where, yeah. So this is a new air, and now remember, you can't catch it from the stool or the urine, but it's getting in the air. So again, stay tuned. There'll be new measures taken.
Yeah, and as you're talking, and we didn't talk about this at all today, but as you're talking, I'm thinking about these concentrated areas, particularly like in New York, where the population is very big, and you have people outside. They may sneeze, they may cough, they may do whatever, and then the wind's blowing, and this seems like it's just a giant petri dish. Then you go into the hospital, with all the things you just told me, the hospitals themselves become a petri dish.
Yeah, and the hospitals, ironically, they are the highest risk for the healthcare workers.
Yeah.
So, there's, again, more to come here.
Well, this kind of leads me to one thing that I wanted to address. Let me get to Tressa's follow-up, and then I'll address that. She wanted to know if, in your opinion, it's going to get worse during the fall flu season. How would you address it? I had some thoughts on that.
Well, again, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with the virus over the heat of the summer. Will it subside? Will it not subside? We just don't know. Will we get to a critical mass of people who have had it and recovered, getting what's called herd immunity? Are these medications like hydroxychloroquine with Zithromax, are they going to work? I mean, trials are going on right now. When will the vaccine be available? So all these things are critical questions. So we just don't know at this point. We don't know can you get the flu and COVID-19 at the same time? No one knows.
I would think that'd be a death sentence, or close, because that's a lot for the immune system to kind of fight off.
We do know if you've just had the flu and recovered from the flu and you get COVID, you're at much higher risk.
I've read that as well.
So there's a lot we don't know. I think it's safe to say a year from now we'll all be lining up eagerly to get the vaccine.
I think you're right.
And maybe sooner.
I absolutely think you're right on that. But one thing I wanted to bring to the table and discuss kind of openly, because at Healthcare Associates of Texas, which is a large clinic where you're set up to do these kind of screenings, they're screened, they're brought in separate entrances, you have a COVID clinic for this, and then you're seeing chronically ill patients in other areas, versus at Executive Medicine of Texas, where we've been very fortunate. We have done telemedicine with our patients. Our patients have been extremely good about understanding that we don't want to expose them, and we don't want to expose our workers, because this kind of, if you think like in the sense of a sexually transmitted disease, it's kind of like every person that person has come in contact with is another opportunity, and every person you've come in contact is another opportunity on the other side. So it's an exponential kind of exposure. So what we've done is we've taken a stance at Executive Medicine that we will do telemedicine, and that until further notice, unless it's an urgent need, we will not bring patients into the office because of that. That's part one. In part two, one of the things that we have decided is we want to be very careful that the patients that we do see, we're not using up some of the resources should North Texas have a dire need for our masks or our gloves or some of these things. We want to be able as a company to give them what they need to save lives. So I think we've taken a stance as a company, and we've been so fortunate to have our patients stand behind us on that stance. I encourage you, unless it's urgent, to stay out of other people's space and really abide by that 6 foot, wouldn't you say?
6 foot is very, very important. Hand washing, very, very important. Sanitizing. But, if you go for a walk in the park, great, but stay 6 feet away from other people. Twice now we've gone for a walk in Bicentennial Park, and some joggers zip right by us within a foot.
Yeah.
This is
and we try to get out of the way as fast as we can, but it's true.
These people are not thinking. They're not being considerate. They're not thinking.
Yeah.
And it works two ways. They might think I'm healthy, but you passed 1 foot away from someone else, that someone else could infect
right.
you.
Yeah.
That's the irony of this. And
Yeah.
this is a very dangerous situation.
It is a two-way thing, and I think that's so important. And like we said, it's exponential as well. Well, I want to encourage you to keep sending in your questions. We'll do more of these. And I know mental health is a really big issue, and it's really something that we're trying to bring more attention to. One of the things that I'm going to be talking about in the future is what to do about your aging parents who are now maybe shut in. I know in my particular case, my mother and her husband are in an independent living center, and they are on lockdown. So we've got to get creative on how we keep them engaged, how we keep their spirits up. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit next time about how to do that and keep the people that can't go out from becoming depressed. And so I just think there's so much here to offer. Engage with us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, all of these places, because we read all the comments, and we're happy to do some of these fireside chats on the things you want to hear about it, because we are here to help you and to serve you. And that's just the way I see it.